What up, YouTube? Welcome back to Fallout Plays. Today, we're going to take an in-depth look at the Bladedancer and how to best utilize their abilities, stats, and equipment in the Crucible. Let's dive right in and talk about the Bladedancer's neutral game, but before we get to either the melee or the grenade, I want to bring up two very important things. First, the Bladedancer has access to a special jump option called Blink, which is basically a short-range teleport. Now, normally I don't talk about jumping options, but this one is worth mentioning because of how useful it is when compared to other jumps. When you teleport with Blink, you make it harder for enemies to shoot you, meaning you can quickly close the gap between you and your enemies and do things like this. Blink is also helpful at quickly getting you out of situations where you might otherwise be killed. All in all, it's a very handy jump choice, and I recommend it highly. The other thing I want to talk about is the Bladedancer's unique ability to become invisible. They can do it a couple different ways, but I'll get into that later. While enemies in campaign will have no idea where you are, people in the Crucible will probably be able to spot you pretty easily. See? Right here. Can you find the invisible hunter? Yep, so can I.
Secure.
Although the camo doesn't hide you very well in PvP, it does have an interesting side effect of briefly taking you off your enemy's radar. Not permanently, but for a couple seconds at a time. 4.5 seconds at a time, to be exact. So it's up to you if you want to try and be sneaky and drop off your enemy's radar every now and then, but just remember that you'll still be pretty easy to spot. Keep in mind that if you do use camo, you probably shouldn't use it with Blink, because Blink is the only jump option that will immediately take you out of invisibility. Okay, moving on to grenades. Option number 1 is the Flux Grenade, which can stick directly to an enemy for a quick one-hit kill. Pretty straightforward and definitely not a bad choice. Option number 2 is the Skip Grenade. This grenade will break up into little pieces and track towards your enemy. The grenade does decent damage, but isn't strong enough to kill in one hit. Now, while that sounds pretty good, in my opinion, it is heavily outclassed by the last grenade choice, which is the Arc Bolt Grenade. This grenade will hit the ground and then shoot out at a nearby enemy with immediate and perfect accuracy. It also has the kind of chain lightning effect and will shoot out and hit other enemies if they're close enough to your target. And while it also isn't strong enough to kill your enemy in one hit, this is my favorite choice for how reliable it is. Having a grenade that will almost always guarantee a hit on your enemy is a really good thing, because you can use them to reliably pick off weak enemies or throw them into groups to weaken everybody. FYI, if your teammates are also Bladedancers and you're coordinated enough to both throw your Arc Bolt grenades at the same time, well then... you get the idea.
You're in the lead.
The Bladedancer melee ability is Blink Strike, which doesn't do any more damage than your normal melee does, but it has really good range, tying only with the Warlock in the distance department. You have 3 different options to upgrade your Blink Strike. The first one is Backstab, which makes your Blink Strike more powerful when hitting enemies from behind. How much more powerful? That much. 200% stronger if you want to get technical. It'll one-hit kill any regular health enemy in PvP from behind. Definitely a good choice. Next up is Escape Artist, which makes you invisible when you hit an enemy with Blink Strike. You'll be invisible for about 7 seconds. This is pretty helpful in campaign, but not very much in PvP. Your enemies probably aren't going to think you magically vanished just because you disappeared right in front of them. The last choice is Fast Twitch, which reduces the cooldown of Blink Strike. By how much? Well, it depends on your strength, but the short answer is by about 90%. Yep, that much. Here, look at these numbers. With absolutely no strength at all, your Blink Strike recharges in 60 seconds, but with Fast Twitch, that changes to 5.5. That's even faster than it normally recharges with full strength. I shouldn't have to tell you that this is a pretty good choice. If you pick this, you pretty much don't have to worry about having armor without any strength on it at all, because you'll be just fine without it. Moving on to the super game, the Bladedancer super is called Arc Blade. Activating it allows you to run around the map and cut up your enemies very quickly for one-hit kills. You also become more resistant to damage by about 50%, meaning you'll be able to live through stuff you normally wouldn't be able to, like this. Not bad. How long does Arc Blade last for? Well, it depends, because the more you swing your knife, the quicker it goes away. Arc Blade lasts for about 16 seconds if you literally stand around and never swing your knife once, which probably won't ever happen. And if you go full on Michael Myers and swing your knife non-stop, it will last for about 10 seconds. Arc Blade is a great super and can quickly tear apart entire teams if you play your cards just right. Arc Blade has 3 upgrade options that you will have to pick from. The first is Showstopper, which lets you do kind of a spin move while using Arc Blade that kills everyone in a short area around you. While that sounds pretty good on paper, I don't like using it because doing so completely stops your running momentum and slows you down by a lot. If people are close enough to be hit with Showstopper, I'd rather just swing my knife like normal so I don't completely slow myself down. Next up is Razor's Edge, which allows you to send out a little shockwave along the ground. This one's pretty good. Although it also stops your momentum, it makes up for it with having really great range. You can even use it to damage titans who like to hide in their bubbles. Finally, we have Vanish, which allows you to turn yourself invisible while using Arc Blade. Activating Vanish will make you invisible for 7 seconds. And again, remember that you'll still be able to be seen pretty easily, but you'll also drop off the enemy radar for 4.5 seconds at a time. That might be helpful every now and then if you're trying to get close to an enemy team without them noticing you until it's too late. Okay, a quick note on armor, recovery, and agility. I've covered this a little bit in my other guides, and this might be the last time I bring it up because I always end up saying the same thing. Armor determines how much damage you can take. A lot of people don't care about this very much, but I do. Here's a chart of guns that are currently being used pretty often in the Crucible and how many shots they take to kill a Bladedancer with low armor compared to high armor. Yeah, it's only a minor difference, but being able to take even one additional bullet in a firefight could mean the difference between living and dying. With low armor, you will also be instantly killed by the annoying, ever-popular Gunslinger trip mine grenades, whereas with high armor, you'll live. Moving on, we get to recovery, which is something I can never say enough good things about. There is literally no drawback to having high recovery, and I will always endorse it. And agility. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Having maximum agility doesn't make that big of a difference when compared to low agility. You do run faster, but only by a little bit, and to me, being able to recover your health faster and to be able to take even one extra bullet or live through a grenade is far more important, in my opinion anyway. There are 2 other columns on the Bladedancer skill tree, and you'll have to make one pick from each one. Let's go ahead and start with this back column. First up is Encore, which extends the duration of Arc Blade when you get a kill using it. Encore extends Arc Blade a lot if you have a ton of enemies to kill, like in Campaign, but unfortunately in PvP it won't be quite as helpful. Here's a comparison of how much your meter will get extended after killing 2 enemies normally and killing 2 enemies with Encore. Unfortunately, not a huge difference. Next we have Stalker, which lets you go invisible by crouching and not moving for a few moments. You'll be invisible for 7 seconds, and again, probably better for Campaign unless your goal is to have an all-camo build to try and quickly get past the enemy's radar. Last up is Hungering Blade, which lets you immediately start regenerating health on a melee kill. This counts for both your regular melee and for Arc Blade. This is a damn good pick, and I almost always use it. When you're using Arc Blade, the enemy team is going to be shooting the hell out of you while you fly in, and yeah, you have damage reduction, but you aren't invincible. Hungering Blade instantly gives you health back after every melee kill, and combining that with the damage reduction of Arc Blade makes you so much harder to kill it's not even funny. I'd actually go as far as to say that if you don't use Hungering Blade, you'll probably find yourself dying while using Arc Blade a lot more often. Alright, now back to this first column. Your first choice is Fleet-Footed, which increases your running speed, which, again, not a super huge deal, but it also increases the length of your slide, by about this much. I know I might get a lot of hate for saying this, but this is probably a really good pick for any player who likes to slide shotgun in the Crucible. I'll admit, it's annoying to fight people who do this, but that's because depending on the map and the player, it can be very effective. The next option is Quick Draw, which lets you ready and aim your weapons faster. Here, I'll show you. Here's how fast you aim weapons normally. And now with Quick Draw. Here's how fast you switch weapons normally. And now with Quick Draw. Not bad. Being able to aim your weapon faster than the other guy can aim his is always a good thing. Last up, we have Shadow Jack, which increases the duration of all your camo abilities. Here's by how much. It's not a set number across the board for whatever reason. Shadow Jack is probably what you'll end up taking if you want to do an all camo build to mess with the enemy team's radar. Let's finish things up with a look at exotic armor and which can help the Bladedancer the most in the Crucible. First up is the Knucklehead Radar with the unique perk Sensor Pack. It lets you keep your radar while aiming with your primary weapon, which is very straightforward and definitely helpful. The other two perks are Light the Blade, causing damage with a grenade reduces melee cooldown, always a good thing, and Inverse Shadow, which unfortunately isn't helpful for PvP, but still, a good helmet overall. Next up, we have Mask of the Third Man and its perk Unstable Current. Attacks with Arc Blade take less super energy. That sounds pretty good, but the amount of super energy it saves you is actually extremely minimal. For the best results, you really need to combine it with Encore, but I don't like doing that because it only saves you a small amount of your super meter overall, and taking Encore means you'll be missing out on the all-important Hungering Blade. At the end of the day, it's your call. The other perks are Infusion, which I'm not a big fan of for PvP, and Switchblade, which is helpful. Next are the Don't Touch Me gauntlets and their ability Defensive Reflex, which will make you briefly invisible after getting hit with a melee. In my opinion, these are way better for campaign and the Crota raid than they ever will be in PvP, even if you're using an all camo build. Your opponents in the Crucible aren't going to be fooled by this at all. The other perks are Special Weapon Loader, which is helpful for the Crucible, and Inverse Shadow, which is not. Overall, not very good armor for PvP. Next, we have the Lucky Raspberry with the ability Improved Arc Bolt Grenade, which lets your Arc Bolt Grenade chains further, always a good thing, and even better, you spawn every time with full grenade energy. Spawning with grenade energy is super helpful and makes a big difference in PvP. It is something I will never not recommend. Lucky Raspberry also has extra fusion rifle ammo, which is okay, and heavy weapon ammo, arguably one of the best armor perks in PvP. It shouldn't surprise anyone that I recommend this armor very highly. Next up, we have the Crest of Alpha Lupi and its perk Keeper of the Pack, which lets you revive and be revived faster, as well as spawn more orbs with your Arc Blade. Spawning more orbs is always helpful in PvP unless you're playing Rumble, and if you like to play game types like Skirmish or Salvage where reviving plays a big role, this armor should be a no-brainer. The other perks on Alpha Lupi are hand cannon ammo and special weapon ammo. Last but not least, we have the Radiant Dance Machines and their ability, the Dance, which lets you move faster while aiming your weapon. Although it might not sound like much, this is pretty helpful, as the bonus to the movement is really noticeable. If you want to try and take this even further, try using the Radiant Dance Machines and the Mida Multi-Tool. The other perk on the Radiant Dance Machines is Heavy Weapon Ammo, which I shouldn't have to tell you again, is pretty much mandatory in PvP. Here are a couple sample PvP builds that I've put together just for you guys. Remember, none of these should be carved in stone. Always experiment with different builds and use what you feel good with. Alright, that's it for now guys. If you like this guide, please hit like, please share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe because I'm always working on more content. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time.